Welcome to the Heart for God podcast. With many years of experience pastoring and helping to start churches, Dr. Jim Townsley has some practical and biblical advice that can be a great help to you and your ministry. On this podcast, Dr. Townsley and other guests with special expertise cover a variety of topics. His goal is to help you lead your church to be a healthy, strong, and balanced ministry, and for your family to be happy, healthy, and living for the Lord.
Thanks for joining me today. It's so good that you're listening in. This is a really, really important topic that I'm going to be talking about. I've talked about finances before and the importance of getting things in order, and I'm going to talk more about the pastor's retirement, savings, and investments. Let me first say I'm not a financial advisor in the sense of being paid or any degree or work for a company. The things I'm going to talk about are just my opinion over 45 years of investing. I started investing when the market was done in fractions, not even decimals, and you had to call a broker, and there was a high fee to buy stocks or do different things. So today, with the internet and digital accessibility, it's unbelievably easy to get involved in investing. First, let me say, though I'm not going to talk about getting out of debt, that really your first step to financial freedom is setting up a budget while getting out of debt. Once you get out of debt, set up an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of income, then start saving. And you do all that in order. Set a budget, get out of debt, set up an emergency fund, start saving. And then finally, you can start investing. Now, there are different ways you can invest. There may be something you're familiar with, saving coins or silver or gold or trading cards. Maybe you can make money at that. But the simplest way is to invest in the stock market. Now, I know there are people who have fear of investing in the stock market, and some, I think, ignorantly say, oh, this is gambling. Just consider this. The S&P 500 is made up of the largest companies in America. And if you buy the S&P 500, you invest a little bit in each of those 500 companies, you're investing in companies that you can make money from as they make money, as they grow. And if the top 500 companies in America falter and go bankrupt, you got worse problems than your bank account. Now, there's a simple way to invest, and this shouldn't scare people, but it does because people are not familiar with it. I taught a class on church planting, and there were 30 students in the class. So I asked how many of these young people had either their parents or they had invested money to save for college. 2 out of 30. One of them was my son, who was in the class. So it's not prevalent. And I have been traveling to different churches, doing church reviews, helping churches, and it seems like this consistently comes up. So I think there is a great deal of ignorance, and it's unfortunate because probably there are people that could obtain $1 million, $2, $3, $4, $5 million in their lifetime. That's all missed, where they spend the money, they live hand to mouth, they don't really have a whole lot of savings, and it's easy to do. I was traveling with our ensemble, and they were drinking some kind of latte or something. Anyway, I said, how much did that cost? They said $5. Said, so if you had one every day 5 days a week for a year. Said, how much would that be? Well, it was $1,300. Said, if you'd invested that at a 10% return, you know how much money you'd had? Would have been just under $1 million in 40 years. So, it's not that hard. It's something that's easy. Length of time is a big key. So if you're out of debt, you have your emergency fund, and you're going to start saving, the sooner you do it, the better. So let's assume that you're doing that. You're starting to put money away. So how do you do that? Well, you open up a brokerage account. Schwab is who I use. There's Fidelity, Vanguard. A lot of young people are using Robinhood, but you contact that company. I know Schwab you can open up online. They have 24-hour answering. Someone will talk to you anytime, day or night, and they can walk you through how to set up a brokerage account. So once you set up that account, you send them a check, you give them some money, $500 or more, and that the account is open. So it basically is sitting in that account in cash, and you can start putting that money into stocks of some sort. Now, when you open the account, you have to make choices. It could be a joint account, which is a taxable account, or it could be an IRA, an individual retirement account, which means you put that money in that account. You do not have to claim what you put in there as taxable income. It grows tax-free, but once you take it out, it is taxable as ordinary income. So the Roth IRA, you pay the tax on the money, it grows tax-free, but when you take it out, it's not taxable anymore. So the Roth IRA is the first thing I would set up. Now, you probably need a joint account. You probably need 4 accounts, but initially the investments you're going to make are going to go primarily into that Roth account, an IRA Roth account. You are limited, if you're under 50, to $7,500 per individual. So you could put up to $7,500. Your wife, if you're married, could put up to $7,500. After 50, it's $8,600. So there's a Roth account. You get it set up. Then the question is, there's so many strategies. There's so many question marks. How do I know what to buy? And this is where I think a lot of people could know almost nothing and beat 9 out of 10 investors by just buying what's called an exchange-traded fund. You're buying an index fund. So if you buy, say, SPY, it's the S&P 500. If you buy the S&P 500, you're buying a little portion of all 500 stocks. So one company has a bad report, it doesn't affect the whole basket of stocks that much. And if you are invest in the S&P 500, those major stocks that are growing actually add more value to that stock. So you buy S&P 500. Now, to buy the S&P 500, my suggestion is to buy V as in Victor, OO. And I think there's a play on the letters where V, the Roman numeral 5, and OO being 2 zeros, be 500. But VOO is almost the same. It is investing in the same thing, but it has a slightly less maintenance fee. It's 0.03. It's almost nothing. So if I was going to buy the S&P 500, I would buy VOO. Now, the S&P 500 over the last 10 years has returned 15% yearly on your investment. When I think about that, where are you going to get 15%? Now, over its lifetime, it's about 10%. But in a way, that's not really a good example because initially as it started, it was not increasing as much. but over the last 10 years, it's been 15%. So I would suggest you have 3 baskets that you're going to invest in, and you don't have to trade in and out. The market goes up or down. You do something called dollar cost averaging. Every time you have money, you put the money in. You maybe save money for a month, transfer it to your brokerage account, and then you buy however many shares you can buy. So if the market is up, you buy fewer shares. If it's down, you're actually buying more shares. And over time, that's proven that you will have a greater outcome by dollar cost averaging. So I would buy VOO. The second thing I would buy, and I would do this depending on the age, is QQQ. Now, if you buy QQQ, it's somewhat insignificant, but it does have a little higher maintenance fee. But the return, it's buying a basket of stocks called the technology stocks, the NASDAQ 100. So you're buying into 100 companies, the technology companies like Amazon and Tesla and, all these things that, you hear in the news constantly, NVIDIA. So you don't have to pick stocks. You're buying all of them. You're buying 100, a little portion of each one. And I would suggest if you're under 55, I would be overweight in QQQ. Now, it is more volatile. When the market goes down, it goes down more. When it goes up more. But over time, if you have 5-year window or a 10-year window, it will recoup if you have the market going down. And you can see that through history. You can find that information by Googling that, and you'll find out that over time, it doesn't last long when the market goes down. And it's only every maybe 5 or 6 years where there's a dip in the market, maybe less than that. So eventually it comes back. So you need time for it to come back. So if you're younger, if you're 20, 25 years old or teenager, if you're under 55, I would put more in QQQ. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, I'd say put 50% of your money in that. If you're under that 55 age, I would put 35% of your money in VOO, and that's the S&P 500. And I would put 15% in S as in Sam, CHD. That's a Schwab dividend account. And it returns over time 12% if you reinvest the dividends. So between the growth of the CETF and the dividends, the yearly return 12%. Now, if you look at it over the last 10 years, it's actually a little bit more than that. So that's where I would start buying those 3 particular exchange-traded funds. That way you're buying a basket of stocks, not an individual stock. If you bought individual stocks, NVIDIA has increased over the last 10 years 72.6% yearly. AMD, 57%. Broadcom, 43%. And there are others that you're probably more familiar with, is Costco, 24%. Walmart, 21%. Amazon, 24%. But no one knows where the stock market's going, when there'll be a recession, when there's a dip, and you might do all right buying individual stocks, but if you're not familiar with the market, it's going to be difficult. I've invested 45 years, and I even heard Warren Buffett say he's made mistakes. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have bought this. So you don't have to know all that. All you have to do is take these 3 funds, and you're going to get an unbelievable return. Now, think about this. I have a family member that he was not familiar with the stock market at all. He had some money, and he's continued to contribute. And I gave him, 3 ways to invest, and I think he's invested in 2 of those. I think S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And in 14 years, it has almost tripled. The money he put in initially is almost tripled. And he continues to add to it, and he has accounts for his children. And he doesn't know anything about it. He doesn't understand the stock market. But that's all he did. He just put it in and leave it. So it goes up or down. He just keeps adding to it. And over time, you'll see that it's going to double or triple, or enough time it could quadruple. But if you can get 12% average return, that is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity, and you're going to outdo most people who are investing. And it's boring. You just put the money in and it grows. It's not that hard to do. And like with Schwab, you have a question, you can call them. They'll walk you through it. They'll help you. They'll help you set up an account. So it's really not that hard. So the third account I mentioned was SCHD, which has a dividend yield of about 3.5%. So the 12%, it's almost 13% return, is the growth of the stock itself, or the ETF, with the dividends. So either way, you're going to get somewhere over 10%, probably more like 13 or 14% by doing what I just said. And so I want to encourage you to not be afraid. I mean, I'd be happy to help. I help people set up accounts all the time. Now, if you get up to 55 and over, you need to start transitioning to something that is a little less volatile, but you can still use the same stocks, just balance more with SCHD, which does not go up and down as much. You could put 40% in that, keep 40%, or put 40% in the S&P 500, and maybe you want to continue to add something, maybe 20% to QQQ, the NASDAQ 100. Now, if you look at what happens, you can get a compound interest calculator. If you go to Nerd Wallet, N-E-R-D Wallet, and find their compound interest calculator, you can say, well, I'm going to put a certain amount of money into the stock market, and I'm going to get this rate of return. And let's say you put 12% in the rate of return, and you do that for 40 years. You could invest $1,000 initially, $10 a month, and you're going to have almost $1 million in 40 years, and 45 years, well over $1 million. I mean, who couldn't do that? $1,000 initial investment and $10 a month, or if you add $100 a month, and the length of time really, really makes a huge difference. But you can play with that. You go to Nerd Wallet and compound interest calculator, and you're going to see, here's realistic. Here's what I can do, and here's what I can get by investing this way. Let's say you put in 12% rate of return, and then over length of time, how much you put in monthly, and it'll calculate, here's the result. Here's how much money that would add up to. I really believe, and this may seem crazy, but I really believe if someone starts at 25 years of age, they can easily come up with $3 or $4 million in their before they retire. Easily, with not huge effort. But when you start at 55 or 60 and you say, oh, I need to get ready to retire, well, you're not going to get nearly that. I mean, the length of time is a huge, huge aspect of it. And if you maybe retire at 65, but you don't need that much extra income, what do you do with that money? You give it to missions, go on a mission trip, help the building program. You can give the money away, pass it on to your children. And that's a biblical perspective, is to pass on inheritance to your children. So there are a lot of things you can do with the extra money. But the key for the Christian is we ought to be content with what we have. A preacher should not be greedy of filthy lucre, but we should be content with where we are. And godliness, contentment is great gain. So you don't need all this money. But if you are good with this money and you're careful and you invest it properly, you're not going to be worried about money all the time. You're not worried about, I'm going to pay the bills and, where am I going to get the cheapest thing. So you don't have to worry about that. That is the key. In the ministry, there are a lot of preachers and families, they worry about how are we going to do this and that. You can live by faith and be wise and good stewards. And I think that's what the key is, being a good steward of what you have, taking advantage of the opportunities that you have. Well, it just seems like I keep coming across this, and a lot of what I'm doing, sometimes I do a financial weekend, a Saturday, Sunday, speak on it, have PowerPoint program on it. But so many preachers are calling me saying, how do I do this? What is a stock? Where do I go? I mean, they don't even know how to open the account. And so you can learn these things. It's not that hard. And once you learn it and get you set up, you're going to see that over time, you're going to be glad that you did this. And it will be a blessing and a help. Well, I hope I've not made this too complicated, because I think it can be very, very simple for you. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me. Just send me a text. You can call, you can email, Pastor Townsley at yahoo.com. Hopefully, this is going to be a help to somebody out there, and pass it along, let someone else know, inform them. And do your research. I mean, try to follow up on what I said. These are my opinions after 45 years, and I think it's been proven true, the things that I'm saying. And you don't have to know a whole lot. You don't have to follow the stock market every day. It doesn't depend on the economy even necessarily. It's just over time, you can be a wise steward and invest in the largest companies in America, and you're going to see good results from it. Well, God bless you, and I trust you have a great day.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider sharing it with a friend. You can also follow at Dr. Townsley on Twitter or on Facebook at Jim Townsley.